All right, it is 7:02 p.m. and I'd like to call this meeting to order. While this meeting is being held in person, we are also offering the option for the public to participate through Zoom if preferred. Instructions on how to participate virtually are included in the calendar item listed on the front page of missionks.org. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Vaughn. Here. Loudon.
Here.
Ryder. Here. Schmidt.
Here.
Carpenter Davis.
Here.
Josie.
Here.
All right, our next agenda item is typically our public hearings, but in the interest of accommodating several special guests this evening, we are going to handle our presentations first. We have 4 special presentations this evening. Our first is a presentation by the Mission Marlins swim team about their 2025 season. Do we have a Mission Marlins representative or representatives? Oh, I thought I saw a crowd. Come on up.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you so much for having us tonight. It's an honor to be here and I look forward to this presentation every year. My name is Katie Darian and I'm the head coach of the Mission Marlins Swim Club. This was my 3rd year as head coach, but I've been involved with the Marlins organization since 1998. Also with me tonight are some of our beloved Mission Marlins swimmers and families and members of, well, the big me. We wanted to help share with you the success and excitement of our summer season. Our team values the relationship we have so much with the City of Mission and the Parks and Rec Department. We start working together to make sure the season runs smoothly in January for the upcoming season. Our swim program would not be possible without your support that we have from you, other city employees, Penn and Jenna. A special shout out to Councilmember Kring, who I know isn't here this evening, but she stopped by at a few of our home swim meets this year and was in the stands supporting us at championships. So a little recap about our 2025 season. Our coaching staff consisted of myself, Jennifer Schleicher, Kevin Hannon, Maren Ruffin, and Molly Kate Ford. Together, we have over 60 years of experience as swimmers and 34 years of coaching experience combined. And the fun fact is that all of us were Mission Marlins at one point in our life. So I think that just goes to show how important this community is to so many people. We had 240 swimmers ranging in age from 5 to 18, and that was an increase of 22 from last year. Many of our swimmers and families come from Mission, but also surrounding cities, Merriam, Fairway, Olathe, Prairie Village, Spring Hill, Lenexa. And I always have to name the family that comes from Overbrook, Kansas, which is an hour and 10 minutes away, one way. But they used to live in Mission and now come from there, but they feel like the community that Mission has supported their child with special needs is why they keep coming back. So as a team, we concluded championships with 2 first place finishes and a 3rd place finish. We placed 3rd in the novice division. That one right here. And the spread between 1st through 3rd place was 53.5 points. So that was very close between those 3 places. And then we achieved 1st place in the level 2 division, which is a time qualifying division, the next level up, by 354 points. And then we got 1st place in the A division by 78 points, to which we won only by 7 points last year. So those were our 3 accomplishments from champs. Not only do we have the team recognition at champs, but we also have the individual recognitions with in recognizing swimmers who achieve the most points for our team with their events. Out of a possible 54 awards, our team brought home 32 of them. So that's more than half, and it just goes to show our depth with our team, but also the strength of our swimmers across every age group. There are some of them here with me tonight. We wrap up the season with team awards and wanted to share with you some of those special recipients as well. What makes our team so special is our kids, and we try to recognize them in a special way. One way that we do that is by awarding the Alyssa Ruffin Award, who was a longtime head coach with us, and assistant coach under John Comstock. Those recipients were Luke Swab, who's here with us this evening. And Elaine Giroux. And then the John Comstock Award goes to our older age group. That also just exemplifies what our team stands for. And that went to Maggie McCauley and Zach Kahotek. And Zach's mom is here with us this evening. And then our Sylvester Powell Award. And as you all know, he was the former mayor of the Mission Marlins and was a huge supporter for us. And so when he retired, we started an award in his name. And that goes to a family or adult or group of people who really just go above and beyond and support our team. And this year, it went to Gabrielle Morris and her family, who took the leap to be our first ever team sponsor this year. So outside of our success in the pool, one of our biggest team accomplishments this year was that we completed a reorganization and are now a Kansas not-for-profit organization with 501c3 status. We love our relationship with the city, and we look forward to seeing how this sort of just exemplifies that relationship moving forward. But it allows us to fundraise and accept tax-deductible donations as well. It also provides a more formal structure for the parent board, the coaches, and the city. We are looking forward to seeing how that opens things for us moving forward. Our team is truly special. It stands out from other area swim teams for so many reasons, and I think one of those reasons is how inviting the Mission community is, which brings so many people this direction from nearby. The love for this team is strong. The dedication from the coaching staff and families and swimmers is immeasurable. There are a few people that would like to say a few words about the Marlins.
Great.
My name is Luke Swab. I have been swimming for the Marlins since I was 7, and I am now 10. I love the Marlins because I love the coaches. They are amazing and fun. They have made me so much faster. I feel like I am loved there.
I'm Luke Swab's mom, and we are just so grateful for this community. When Luke started swimming at 7, he had been recently diagnosed with diabetes, and that can feel overwhelming to coaches and teachers and everybody. And I feel like Katie and her coaching staff, like they took it seriously, but weren't alarmed. And I just feel like I'm always safe, feel safe dropping him off. And yeah, no, it hasn't been handled like that with every organization we've been to. So that's been amazing. And I will just say for them, to the community, I feel like people come because they are competitive enough to like do well and challenge kids. And my son is extremely competitive, and he has that, but he also has fun. I just think that's hard to find in youth sports right now. It's either recreational and not a lot of coaching, or club sports that require everything of you. So I just really appreciate them. That's an affordable and super fun way to like stay connected to families and give our kids an opportunity to compete and also have fun. So. Everybody got shy on me. All right. But anyway, thank you so much for having us this evening. We love sharing our success with you. And as always, thank you again for your support. We look forward to next season.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mission Marlins. Always great to get that update and to see all the enthusiastic participants here. Our second special presentation tonight is a proclamation declaring September 15th through 21st, 2025 as Diaper Need Awareness Week in Mission. For the past few years, Mission has observed this week in partnership with Happy Bottoms Diaper Bank by issuing a proclamation to raise awareness on the widespread need for diapers to improve the health and welfare of infants and toddlers. Happy Bottoms currently distributes over 580,000 diapers each month to more than 7,400 children across our 6-county service area. Last year alone, they provided over 5.9 million diapers to families in our community, and the need continues to grow. Diapers cannot be bought with food stamps or WIC vouchers, and a monthly supply can cost, on average, $100 or as much as 6% of a full-time minimum wage worker's salary. Families living in the urban core without access to big box or warehouse stores must pay a premium at their corner store or local market. We encourage the community to support this important effort and provide relief to those in need by donating to the Happy Bottoms Diaper Bank in Kansas City. Our third special presentation tonight is honoring the work of the Johnson County Christmas Bureau, a nonprofit whose goals include providing warmth and support during the winter holiday season to low-income Johnson County families, increasing awareness and understanding of poverty in Johnson County, and giving neighbors an outlet to help neighbors. We are very appreciative of the work of the Johnson County Christmas Bureau over the last 65 years and the inspiration it has provided for programs like our own Mission Family Adoption Program, which encourages both Mission and Roland Park residents to donate food, gift cards, and gifts each holiday season in partnership with our local schools. Tonight, we are excited to welcome Johnson County Christmas Bureau board member. I don't believe it's who's on my sheet, but I do know who is here to speak. It's Deb McFeeder, who's actually my neighbor growing up. So to accept this proclamation and offer our best wishes for many more years of giving in Johnson County. Deb, you want to come on up?
Thank you. I just like,
Yeah, photo. Yeah, if you want anything.
I'll
you
make
want to
up
share.
comments and then we can have photo op. So as Sally said, I've known her since she was 2, but I think the key things about Johnson County Christmas Bureau, it's this is our 65th year. It started as a group of women who wanted to do a similar, like a red bag project for people in need. We've evolved that to a holiday shop since 1977. Last year, we served more than 13,000 individuals in Johnson County. The only requirement is that you have to live in Johnson County and be at 50% of the poverty line. Mission had, I believe, 78 families who came last year. What's different about our organization, and one of the things I'll give you an opportunity to do is how to help us, is people come and they actually select what they want. So many of us have participated with our families in red bag projects where you get a little sticker and it says you need to buy some pajamas for an 8-year-old boy in a size 10. Well, you don't know if he likes what color he likes or what theme of pajamas. Does he want flannel? Does he want whatever? Whereas in this case, families actually come and they select their things. We were recognized in an article of the Kansas City Star 2 years ago about being one of a handful of organizations in Kansas City that gives with dignity. And we think that's really important. As Solly also shared, another key thing that we do is we like to enable neighbors helping neighbors. It takes us more than 3,000 volunteers to execute our shop every year. It's a fabulous team building experience. So either having the council as a team come, people that work in the city come, at your place of business come. We'll release the sign up for that October 1st, and we would encourage you to bring a group over, and then you'll really understand how far we've come from a red bag project to a holiday shop. So we thank you so much for your proclamation, and we are always trying to get the word out. So if you can help us do that, please do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you want a quick photo?
Go ahead. I got it. Okay, and I want to stand in front of you. All right, everyone, you know the drill. All right, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
And having her take my shoes.
Oh, yeah, then let me make it.
So we can put that on our face.
Excellent. Oh, perfect. 2 beautiful ladies. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
All right, our final special presentation tonight is a proclamation honoring the Mayor's Monarch Pledge. Elected officials are taking action to help save the monarch butterfly, an iconic species whose eastern populations have declined by 90% and western populations by 99% in recent years. Through the National Wildlife Federation's Mayor's Monarch Pledge, U.S. cities, municipalities, and other communities are committing to create habitat for the monarch butterfly and pollinators, and to educate residents about how they can make a difference at home and in their community. The City of Mission is excited to participate in this pledge, and this proclamation recognizes the specific ways the city is working to improve the monarch butterfly population in our community. That concludes the special presentations this evening, so we will return to the rest of our agenda. I did miss at the top of the agenda that we have a revised agenda this evening, so I would entertain a motion on the revised agenda, and we will move into our public hearing.
And just as a point of clarification, the revision was flipping the presentations and the public hearing, so.
Mayor, I move the city approve the revised September 17th, 2025 agenda as printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Tired? Aye. Carpenter Davis?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Loudon?
Aye.
Josie?
Aye.
Vaughn? Motion carries.
All right, so we will now turn to the public hearing portion of our agenda. We have one combined public hearing on our agenda this evening. First, I will officially open the budget and revenue neutral rate public hearing for the City of Mission and Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2 for consideration of the 2026 budgets as required by KSA 79-2929 and KSA 79-2988, and the budget hearing for Rock Creek Drainage District Number 1. We'll hear first from our City Administrator, Laura Smith. Following her presentation, if any members of the public would like to make a comment on the items listed for public hearing with regard to the 2026 budgets or the intent to exceed the revenue neutral rate, that time would be after Ms. Smith's presentation. Laura?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mr. Carroll has, you all should have at your place a copy of the budget in brief, which has been out on the website for the last couple of weeks, but we've got copies for anybody in the audience who might wish to follow along, and then we'll also project that here as we walk through the screen. So here we are after 6 months of budget conversations, discussions, a lot of thought going into, as it does in the annual budget each year. And so, okay. So I'm just going to kind of quickly run through some of the highlights here. All of the materials, we created a budget sort of landing page a couple of weeks ago where we compiled, again, all of the budget memos and presentations that have been occurring since April of this year. Those were shared previously in agenda items. All of these things had been in on our calendar and in public agendas, but we wanted to collect those all in one place and then kind of look at a budget in brief. So for 2026, I think as most of you know, but for the public's benefit, we go through and we look at revisions to the current year's budget. Because we do budget so far in advance of the start of the fiscal year, which begins on January 1st. We need an opportunity mid-year, if you will, to start to think about any adjustments that might be necessary based on changes in revenue or expenses that may have been unknown at the time the budget was adopted. So that's why later on your agenda, you will have a 2025 revised budget as well as a 2026 recommended budget. So in 2026, the city's budgets for approximately 18 individual funds, and most of those are required by statute to be maintained in separate funds, kind of separate silos, if you will, for segregation of those dollars. But then all of those funds come together and are adopted under the umbrella of the City of Mission's budget. In the 2026 budget, we are projecting about $38.6 million in revenues across all of those 18 funds and $46.3 million in expenses across those funds. Now, I will tell you, in the 20 years that I have had the privilege of working for the City of Mission, this is the largest budget that we have, in my tenure here, we have adopted, driven in large part by two significant capital improvement projects, the Johnson Drive project between Lamar and Metcalf, and the Rock Creek Channel project. And we'll touch on those later, both of which have significant grant dollars that are coming in to fund those. But that's really the driver in some of that this year. I would just touch on, so we've talked about, we started this budget process in April, looking at goals and objectives and just kind of a general kickoff discussion with the council. And then we've progressed through more in-depth looks at our five-year capital improvement program, the general fund, which is our largest fund of those 18, it's our annual operating budget, consideration of the revenue neutral rate, which the council had to make a decision about, at least telegraphing that back in July, and then a community dialogue on the budget that was held in advance of your August 20th city council meeting. And then we're here tonight with the public hearings and final adoption of the budget. So I would just start with, spend most of the time this evening talking about the general fund. Again, it is the largest fund in the city's budget. In 2026, the recommended budget includes 16.36 million in general fund revenues, an increase of 7% over the 2025 estimated budget. We have 5 revenue streams that make up approximately 95% of those general fund revenues, those being property tax, sales and use taxes, both those that are specific to the city and those that are shared with the city, a portion of county sales and use taxes, franchise fees, parks and recreation revenues, and fines and forfeitures. And so the 2026 recommended budget does include a 3.5 mil increase, which begins to address some of the structural imbalances that we've been talking about for the last couple of years that are in our budget, resulting from a variety of things. But we've had some significant use tax and property tax refunds in prior years, going back as far as 2014. We don't get notice of that, so we don't have the ability to plan in our budgeting process for those refunds. One of the largest of which hit in January and February of this year, which was about $330 some odd thousand, which represented about 20% of the sales and use taxes that were projected in the 2025 budget. We've also seen increasing wage pressures, primarily in the police department. We've had in excess of 20% turnover in the department in recent years because of other agencies and jurisdictions competing with salaries. That makes it very difficult for us to be able to keep a police force on the street, patrolling and keeping our neighborhoods and our business districts safe. And then also really beginning to think about planning for the need for replacement of police station and city hall. So you can see that we did have a mill levy increase that was just slightly over 2 mills with the 2024 budget. That actually just brought us back to levels. This chart here shows 2020, but going back as far as 2017, we were at about that 18.5 mil levy. The next sheet in the budget in brief, I won't spend a lot of time on, but one of the things that we've talked about is how do you actually calculate the tax or mill levy rate on your individual property. And so we have to use average values here, but this is just the formula that residents can use to estimate what they might pay in city property taxes. And the average appraised value of a home in Mission is a little over $350,000. So based on that amount, the average city property tax is about $890 a year, or $74 a month. And that is calculated with the estimated 3.5 mill levy increase. And we'll touch in a moment on what those dollars go for. The next slide is really just a highlight of the general fund expenses, both by dollar and percentage. It's no surprise that the Public Safety Department, it is our largest department. We have 72 full-time employees budgeted in the 2026 recommended budget, and 31 of those are in the Mission Police Department. 29 are commissioned or sworn officers. And then we have police clerks, community service officers, and then also our municipal court clerks. The next largest budget is our public works budget, and followed very closely by Parks and Recreation. Then administration, which includes our general overhead budget, which where we carry our property and casualty insurance premiums, and a number of sort of larger scale utility bills for our facility. So those things which aren't necessarily directly attributable to one particular department, So it is the general overhead budget as well as the legislative and the administration budget. And then community development sort of rounds out those general fund expenses in 2026. So in 2026, we have shown 15.95 million in expenditures, including transfers in the general fund. And so the transfers in the general fund right now are $850,000 to our street program. So we have transferred since 2016, we have transferred $10.9 million out of the general fund to our capital improvement fund to help support residential and arterial and collector street maintenance. Streets remain and have consistently been the number one priority of residents in our direction finder survey. And so a significant portion of those property tax revenues over the years have gone directly into that infrastructure investment. In 2026, we're proposing $100,000 subsidy to the solid waste utility fund. That is a subsidy that we've paid. It's fluctuated annually, but that helps to subsidize the contract we have for residential solid waste collection, which includes trash recycling, yard waste, and bulky item collection. And then there's a debt service payment for police patrol cars to replace the frontline fleet for the police department, which is now, I believe, five years old. That's this 15.95 million in expenditures is a 5% increase over our 2025 estimated budget. We have reduced our full-time employee count in the 2026 recommended budget by 2. Both of those positions in the police department, both are currently vacant. One CSO or community service officer position and one crime statistics analyst position there. We continue to offer the citizen rebate program for income qualified households. The program parameters and guidelines were modified in 2024 to make that program available to more residents. And then we are continuing our neighborhood and grant and assistance programs. So the ongoing priorities that are really driving not just the general fund budget, but the capital improvement budget as well include street maintenance, certainly at the top of the list, looking at walkability, bikeability, sustainability and resilience, code enforcement, park improvements, small business initiatives, zoning and building code updates, development activity, and making sure that we can remain a safe, inclusive, and welcoming community. So in 2026, in the recommended budget from the general fund, the policy assumptions that were used are based on a continuation of that transfer of property tax revenues to the CIP fund to support street maintenance, continuing to maintain a general fund fund balance or fund reserves of no less than 25% of total general fund revenues. That is a rainy day fund. That is an amount that is recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association of America, or GFOA. It allows us, it helps us with our bond ratings in the event that we go to the market to issue debt. We're looking at maintaining the solid waste utility rate at $193.02 annually, or $16.09 a month for single family property owners. So that is consistent with the current rate, so no increase there, although we did have a 3% increase in the solid waste contract. The city itself is absorbing that increase for 2026. Funding replacement of the highest priority capital needs. I will tell you that just kind of where we were in the budget process, we have not, we don't have a lot of capital equipment that's included in the 2026 recommended budget. Our departments are doing a really good job of managing and maintaining their vehicles and equipment. We evaluate that each year, but we know we have on the horizon replacement of the street sweeper, and then making sure that we can continue to keep our fleet, particularly in public works and the police department, operational. Maintaining the franchise and mill rate rebate program at 100% of the city franchise fees, 100% of total city mill, exclusive of city special assessments. So the special assessment would be if you had something that was an abatement or a code enforcement issue that was included, 50% rebate of the solid waste utility fee, and then also a rebate on the solid waste utility fee. And that was what was added in 2024. We hadn't previously rebated the solid waste utility, or storm water utility fee. And that was added. And then maintaining an investment in resident and business grant and assistance programs, and continuing an investment in the mental health co-responder program. So you'll see here also just that desire to maintain and comply with the city council's policy of a 25% fund balance goal. What we've proposed, and you'll see in some of the early years, 21 and 22, you'll see that blue bar much higher. That is our actual general fund balance, and then the 25% fund balance requirement. Those years are particularly higher because we had federal dollars coming in related to CARES Act or COVID. And so and we also had some bond proceeds issued. And so it's kind of a balancing of either bond proceeds or dollars that we received, but we had time to spend. And the council was thoughtful in how they did that. So you can kind of see us bringing that fund balance goal comes down. In 2025 estimated, we're just slightly below at 24%, but we're far enough into the year that we feel like dropping that 1% to kind of keep things balanced doesn't pose any really concern or danger. So the part of that goal is maintaining a strong fund balance without sacrificing the progress on key projects and priorities. The pie graph at the bottom of this page talks about the outside resources that we've secured in the last 6 years. We look under every rock and behind every tree for other people's money. And we've been very, very successful in leveraging more than $21 million in other people's money over that same time period. Again, a large portion of that is a $6 million federal grant that will fund the Johnson Drive reconstruction project, and about between 4 and 5 million in county stormwater dollars that will go toward funding the large Rock Creek Channel project from Woodson to Maple. So we will continue to look for those opportunities. They're limited in the general fund. We tend to have much better luck taking advantage of that for infrastructure projects. Next page just talks briefly about how your property tax dollars are actually distributed across the budget. So as a Mission resident, your total tax bill, you're supporting school districts. So education, parks and recreation, not just city parks and recreation, but Johnson County Parks and Recreation, Johnson County Libraries, Consolidated Fire District 2 and Fire Protection Services, as well as Johnson County Community College, the state, and then Johnson County in general. So Mission's portion of your total tax bill estimated for the 2026 budget is about 18.9%. So every one of the property tax dollars that's distributed to the city is spent on the functions and services in the general fund as follows. So you look at 13 cents to administration, which again was general overhead, legislative and administration budget, community development about 8%, parks and recreation 23 cents, public safety 38 cents, and public works 18 cents. So that's just kind of a breakdown of how the dollars that come to us are then allocated across the services that we provide. The next two pages we'll just touch on. So several years ago, the governing body created 5 key performance areas, which are reflective of the council's top priorities and budget objectives coming in from the Direction Finder survey, our boards and commissions, staff, council, interaction with citizens and businesses on a regular basis. We then developed value statements in each area, and each year during the budget process, we've tried to connect the budget and policy recommendations back to those key performance areas and kind of illustrate the total of that $46.3 million, how that's being allocated. So I wanted to just touch on this briefly. So infrastructure has historically been our largest category. Total investment in 2026 is $27,720,000. And you can kind of see then in this chart the breakdown. So transfer of property tax revenues for streets, the Johnson Drive construction project at $11.9 million. Funding for localized and emergency stormwater projects, debt service for stormwater infrastructure projects, debt service for street infrastructure projects, our residential street program, traffic striping safety programs, curb and sidewalk, and then the Rock Creek Channel construction. The next largest category actually is not Parks and Recreation, but on this list of Parks and Recreation at a little over 5.5 million in total in 2026. So you may recall that we do have a dedicated Parks and Recreation sales tax. That's a 3/8 cent, which goes into its own fund, and it's used primarily to fund improvements to our outdoor park system, the Powell Community Center, and the Mission Family Aquatic Center. But when you look at the value statement here, it talks about maintaining welcoming, inclusive, clean, safe destinations and programs. And so also included here, you will see, actually, I may have missed that one. It's included in the total, but I need to add another line, is actually the operating budgets out of the general fund for the Mission Family Aquatic Center and the Powell Community Center. So the total there, so then you'll see the other maintenance projects, PCC improvements. We've kind of, as you know, we've made significant investments in our outdoor park system. Each of the parks has now received an investment of some type. So Anderson Park got the Mission Family Aquatic Center and an upgrade to the tennis courts. Mohawk Park has really come to life in the last couple of years. Waterworks Park has been redone. Broadmoor Park has had a new walking trail that was installed. Streamway Park is the one park that really hasn't included anything. That park is actually owned by KDOT. It's KDOT right-of-way. And so any of our proposals for improvements to that park have to be approved by KDOT. So we have some plans for that, but we've really focused on those parks that are more at that neighborhood level. And then looking at municipal operations, this total investment is 15.7, almost $15.8 million. And that includes basically all of the things that the operating departments that are included in the general fund, with the exception of the Parks and Recreation staff. And then you'll see replacement of in-body and in-car cameras for police. We're on a lease arrangement for that. We're in year 3 of 5. Taser replacement year 4 of 5. The mental health co-responder program, the residential solid waste subsidy, police vehicle debt service, and then our general fund reserves. And while that's not an expense on an annual basis, it's not money that is available or considered as a part of the budget on an annual basis. From a sustainability standpoint, the total 2026 investment is just about $375,000. And I failed to mention that, and there's a key to this, we've only listed each of these one time. There's a lot of overlap in the various categories. So where there's overlap, that's been identified here. So we have preservation and enhancement of the urban tree canopy, maintenance of the native plantings on Johnson Drive, a business recycling program, facility conservation, program improvements, the debt service on that. Those were upgrades to HVAC and other mechanical systems at primarily at the community center, but also here at City Hall and the Public Works facility, and then participation in Evergy's Renewables Direct program, which results in credit to us. We're estimating about $20,000 in 2026. And then economic development, $563,000. Business improvement grant, our mission magazine, street banners. I included TIF distributions here. It's something that we have now quantified, and you can see that in the budget differently than maybe in the past. And then special event expenses, which haven't been committed, but we do know that we have the World Cup coming in 2026, and it will also be the city's 75th anniversary. I didn't include in this budget in brief really anything in the capital, on the capital improvement side, except the major projects, which will be funded or budgeted to be completed in 2026 are included in this infrastructure section in the key performance area. And then anything captured in the other funds is also included in this key performance area summary. I think, unless the council has any questions of me at this point, I think I would pause for any questions and then any other public comments.
Okay, do we have any questions from council before I open it up to public comment? Yeah, Wanda, yeah? Oh.
I just want to say that, new to the council, I've been very impressed with the work it takes to do this budget. And it's not likely that we take this consideration of this action. And I do thank you for all the work. And I think this is a really impressive support.
Thank you. And I appreciate, and I say this every year, but I appreciate the work and the time that you all put in all year long, but the last 6 months have been pretty intense in terms of thinking about decisions for the future. So thank you.
Any other council questions? Seeing none, we'll open it up for public comment. If you are participating through Zoom, please either add your comment in the chat feature and it will be read out loud, or note that you would like to speak and we will call on you shortly to make your comment verbally. Please remember your comments or questions are visible to everyone in the meeting. If you are part of our in-person group tonight, please raise your hand but stay seated and we will call on you to come to the lectern to make your comments. When you make your comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record. Also be conscientious of others trying to speak and speak slowly and clearly. If I need to confirm something that may have been difficult to hear, I will ask for clarification. Please note that public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. And Robin, can I have you be my timekeeper tonight? Great, thank you so much. Justin, do we have anyone online? All right, audience hands. I see Joe in the back row, and then we'll go here, Judith. Joe, come on up.
Good evening. It's that time of year again where I come and talk with all of you about my views on the budget. There are a lot.
Can you state your name and city of
Of
residence?
course, my apologies. My name is Joe Donaway. I live here in Mission at 53rd and Outlook in Ward 2. As I was saying, there are many good and necessary items in this budget. Just in the past couple of months, I saw the mental health co-responder do a very good service for a teen in need. All of the police that I've seen out and about in the duties that they're doing have been professional and responsible. Our streets are looking better than they have in years. With that, talking about the mill levies and the increase in the mill levy, this is incredibly important because as a person's property tax increases, mine is in this situation, say they're above 8%, above 10%, that means their actual property tax increase with this increase in mill levy is in the double digits. And we've seen a raise in property valuations year over year over year now for several years that are starting to become onerous. The number of people searching in their internet searches, what do I do if I can't pay my mortgage, is near at possibly beyond pre-2008 levels. And looking at monthly payments instead of looking at total monthly paid is something that predatory car companies do with their predatory car loans. In our property taxes, we pay more to Mission than any other taxing district tax on our property tax lists. Mission at the $800 number is higher than the county, it's higher than the schools, it's higher than the community college. There comes a time when people are unable to pay these taxes, and it's very important to look at how far someone can be pushed before they break and they give up and they choose no longer to pay in, or they find other avenues and options that aren't necessarily good and healthy for them or the city. Again, we're doing amazing things in this city. And with that, we need to be mindful with how far we push people with these increases in property taxes and the way that we display it. Because a double-digit rise in appraised values in total property tax bill is substantial. And it's something that we should keep in mind. And with that, thank you.
All right, next is Judith over here. Come on up.
I'm Judith Shotwell. I live in Mission off of Null and Shawnee Mission Parkway. And I'm really nerdy about this budget stuff. So I was wondering, when do the taxes get counted in the budget for new construction? So you see a lot of new construction around. When does that come into play? When would we expect, with all the new apartments and stuff that we see, that we would see that as incoming revenue in the for the budget?
No, and I can either answer that now, or if you have other questions, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Laura.
So I think the answer to that question is it varies somewhat. So the county appraiser will begin to value projects of any type as they start to be constructed. And so that valuation will begin to sort of creep onto the assessed valuation list over time. And then typically, once a roof is on a structure, they're going to be at a full assessed valuation for the city. For the projects that have been approved by this council in recent years, where there have been requests for incentives, and not all of the new development in the community has requested some sort of public incentive, this council has not given 100% of the revenues that are anticipated to be generated to any of those developers. There's been a real desire to make sure that the city is making at least as much, and in every case, in every project that we've approved so far, we will be collecting more throughout the life of that incentive, which is typically 20 years. 10 to 20 years, depending on the type of incentive, than what we're currently generating in property tax revenues. So it's been incredibly important to this council to not set us back in granting incentives, but to make sure that we are actually moving ahead in collecting revenues from those new development projects, even with the use of public incentives.
And Laura, that's because the valuation increases for the project when you're
Yes.
having the new projects. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Great. Thank you. Kim, I think I saw your hand next.
Howdy, howdy. It's that time again. Kim Donaway. I'm in Ward 3, and I've been pretty vocal on different issues with the city that we have moved forward a lot in a lot of the arenas. The police department's been doing fabulous. Public Works, for the most part, has been doing pretty good, except in a couple of areas where I sent in messages and they addressed it. Increasing the mill levy and having the residents, the city being the profit center for the residents, I don't agree with. I have to keep a budget. There's things I'd love to do, and I do not have thousands of people funding my checkbook. The city of Mission has thousands of people funding your checkbook. Sometimes we have to rein it in. It hit the news today and yesterday. Kansas is taking back all these tax credits that they gave to developers. They're clawing it back. So they don't have an issue taking back the money that they granted them and the benefits, because they recognize that they're losing out. I've been outspoken about the abatement programs and the 20-year gift programs to all these developers because we're subsidizing all the new people living here. I mean, I do not enjoy paying for all the new residents, and I don't think anybody else does. Here's one other thing. I go to garage sales in all the wards. And in all the wards, all the people that live there are complaining about the property tax and that they can't afford to live there. You're having to put more people into a house, into a building, into an apartment to live together because the wages, minimum wage in the state of Kansas, how dare they, is still $7.65 an hour. How can anybody afford to live in Mission on that? So I have issues with seeing a 22% 22 mill levy. Prairie Village is 16. So what's wrong with our city that we have that big of a discrepancy? And that's all over the airwaves. And that's been also archived and recorded. How come we're so high compared to all these other cities? And I see the special assessments sitting on my taxes. I own property in several cities, so I can speak about the discrepancy in Mission and how unaffordable it has become. And I think we need to take a look at what's happening. Where are we losing? Where are we not addressing issues? Where are we not reining in? Where are we not addressing the waste that a lot of us see? I was talking to one back here. He watched the street sweeper, which I used to complain about, just going up and down the streets and not doing anything. That's very common with that street sweeper. No kidding. If you don't think that people don't watch, most of them. So thank you.
All right, do we have any other hands in the audience tonight? Yeah, we'll go back on this side first.
Good evening. I'm Melanie Monson. I'm in Ward 4. I'm on Juniper Drive. And thank you, Ben, for all the emails that I've ever sent and you've replied to immediately.
Yeah, certainly.
And shout out to Robin, because I had an issue over the winter with the snow plowing, and they do a great job, but they kind of blocked my driveway, and she was very helpful. Police and fire do an awesome job. I have a question about sidewalks. Will they put sidewalks around the schools or the parks? Because it just seems like there's not enough of them. Because the parks are awesome. I think they're beautiful, but you can't walk a stroller in the middle of the street, you know, and then having cars go by and get to the park or the school. So that's all I'd like to see is a little bit more sidewalks. That'd be helpful. That's about it.
Laura, did you want to speak
I
to
did
that?
want to just reference there that the council recently adopted a Mission Connections plan, which was a bike and pedestrian plan that we received a federal grant in order to conduct. And it's looking at improving and enhancing the pedestrian connections like sidewalks, opportunities for bikeability throughout the community. So we're now working to overlay the results of that study with our annual capital improvement projects so that we can incorporate those recommendations into that. So.
And it isn't just Mission. It seems like when I'm on my way to work in the morning, sometimes people are out walking their dogs. I mean, that's just the way everybody has to, but they have nowhere to go when you're trying to drive by them. And it's hard to see people in the morning. But at least if they had an opportunity to get on a sidewalk, I think they'd be a little safer.
Yeah.
But it's the strollers with, you know, when you're walking your grandkids, and it just would be nice to have a few more sidewalks. So anyway, thanks, Ben.
Yeah, well, it sounds like Ben has your email, so maybe he can
Yeah.
forward you our
He's
Mission
good about
Connections
answering
plan as
questions.
well.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And Laura, I don't know if you want to take that moment to highlight our Complete Streets work session as well.
Yes.
But
and
the
we will-
snowplow guys are awesome in the winter.
Yes, they
They
are.
really are, because I can at least get to work and it's very helpful.
We also will next week, we have a work session for the council to begin discussing a complete streets ordinance and policy, which again talks about how to make the street network friendlier for all users, not just vehicles. And that was a recommendation included in the comprehensive plan that was updated recently. So we have several studies that are now to the point where we can take those recommendations and really start to incorporate them into the capital improvement projects that we are planning and budgeting for in our 5-year capital improvement.
Yeah, the parks are great. The one on Mohawk, our grandson just loves that thing. He calls it the Blue Park. He's still pretty little, but you know, he can do a lot of things over there. But the bathrooms were a huge improvement. Thank you.
I think I saw a hand somewhere back. Yep, back row.
Good evening. My name is Nora Moore. I live in Ward 2. I just have one comment and then a question. In regard to the parks, I think our parks are very nice in Mission, but I question how many a city this size really needs. And the reason I'm saying that is I live very close to the park that was just updated on 53rd Street. And I travel a lot back and forth by that park. I have never once seen it busy, not once. The only time that you see a number of people there is when school is let out at the end of the day, and parents often go there to pick up their children. So going forward, I would really like the city to look at the usage before we pour any more capital dollars into the parks, especially given as the number of parks that we have. My question that I have, and I apologize that I've missed it, but could someone just quickly explain what the Johnson Drive Metcalf capital improvement is? Thank you.
Laura, do you want to take
I'll
the
take a
first
stab
stab
at
at
it,
that
and I may
one? Yeah.
ask for some help, but the Johnson Drive reconstruction project is a major street reconstruction project that's going to be occurring in 2026 between Lamar and Metcalf. So the configuration of the street is not changing, but there are significant infrastructure needs underneath the street. For anyone who was around for the 2014 reconstruction of Johnson Drive between Lamar to the east to Knoll, we will be addressing stormwater issues, relocation. There's significant utility work and investments that will be made by various utility companies, an increase and widening of the sidewalks. So really just an enhancement. That is, we often hear, and from some sitting at the dais, that's the worst street in town right now, just in terms of crumbling curbs and potholes. So that will be a major investment. We do have, as I mentioned earlier this evening, a $6 million federal surface transportation grant that was obtained several years ago for this project. And so that offsets a significant portion that it would be and is borne. And then there's an additional $2 million, how much in $2 million in county assisted road dollars. So of that $11.9 million project, about $8 million of other people's money will be funding that. Utility work, I will just do that plug while I'm standing up here. Utility work, we thought was going to start this week. There've been a few delays, but you'll see the start of that occurring very soon. There will be one lane open in each direction for traffic, but it's going to be a long, we're going to ask for everybody's patience as we navigate that.
Yeah.
Oh, and we are building a page on the website where residents or folks can go for periodic updates on that project once it starts in earnest.
Great. And I think I saw one more hand back here. Yep.
Hi, I'm Ron Monson, and I live in Mission with Melanie. I had several questions that I'll try and list off quickly. Early on in your speech, you were talking about expenses that come up that you have no control over. And you used a term that I wasn't familiar with. I was hoping at some point you'd be able to explain to me what that was.
Absolutely.
And then also, I was noticing when I was reading through here that several of the things that you are listing in here as far as the, like further expenditures, like it talks about here about raising wages and it talks about building a new building. Is that what you're talking about over here? There was something over here about
I believe there's a note about future facility planning.
yeah, future facility planning. And I was wondering what that was. Is that talking about, because in Prairie Village, they have a big fight going on about wanting to build a new building. And then also I wanted to bring up the fact that over the last 10 years since we moved to Mission, our taxes have increased. They're double what they were when we got here. And now you want to raise it another 20%. I just think that that's exorbitant. I mean, we're going to find ourselves living on the street. We're trying to retire and we work to pay off our house and we find ourselves, our incomes aren't going to go up. But if you guys keep raising taxes every year by 10, 15%, we aren't going to be able to stay there for very long. And I just I wish you guys would take that into consideration before you adopt these things. Anyway.
I can try to
Answer the
would,
question.
would you please tell me the term that you didn't understand? So I know what I'm,
It was something you said you had, like, I think you're talking in this area here.
strong fund balances?
Or, no, wait.
Was it the use tax rebate?
Use tax, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tax,
Okay.
that's what-
Refund or use tax refund, yeah.
Tax refund. Thank you. It does take a village, right? Okay, so from a facility needs standpoint, we do not have a specific plan. And I would welcome any member of the public who would like to take a tour, particularly of our police department. To do so, we have known that this facility is in dire need of replacement, quite honestly, and has been for many, many years. We know we are sensitive to the conversation that's occurring in Prairie Village. We certainly are not contemplating a grand addition by any stretch. But for example, our female locker room is slightly larger than this podium, not by much. We don't have the locker space. We have how many female officers currently? Four. So, I mean, it becomes not only just a health and safety issue, quite honestly, and we do have some issues there in this building for the employees who are working here, but particularly in our police department, it also becomes a recruitment and retention issue along with wages. So we are I think a couple years out really in this planning process at a minimum. And so the invitation stands for anybody who wants to do that. I did talk about a use tax refund. So a use tax is similar to a sales tax, but it's charged on materials not at the site with which they're purchased, but where they're delivered. And so if you purchase something at Nebraska Furniture Mart, you aren't going to pay the sales tax in Wyandotte County. You're going to pay the sales tax to Mission. So internet sales, those kinds of things, that's use tax. So there's point of sale taxes that occur within our city boundaries, but then the use tax as well. So the use tax is what we've had some significant refunds on. And then I did.
Laura, that's when someone appeals their
Correct, and
taxes
that's
for
when
different reasons.
Someone appeals their taxes for some reason, and it goes to a board of tax appeals, and they ultimately render a decision. And so that can be a refund of property tax or sales or use tax. The most immediate refund that we've had has been use tax.
And so, for example, if someone appealed their property tax valuation, the city of Mission is not actually the one that sets that property tax valuation, right? And so we don't have control over what it was originally set up at. We don't have control over the appeal. But then if someone wins their appeal, you can end up having to have
Yes.
a refund.
And it can take sometimes several years for that appeal to work its way through the system. And so we may end up refunding tax dollars that were collected, for example, in 2016, and we're refunding them in a 2023, 24, 25 budget. So
Yeah.
we don't have that advance kind of warning.
And the large example that we had was AT&T, which is for profit, but is, my understanding is taxed in certain ways, at least as a utility. And so they appealed their use tax, basically saying they shouldn't have had to pay it as a utility. And that was where we got hit with a several $100,000 refund, right?
Mhm. That's correct. And then I do have, and I'm sorry I didn't include it in the presentation, but one of the things that the council asks to look at each year through the budget process is how do we compare against other communities? And I believe it was Ms. Donaway that was talking about some of the other mill levies. So I do have a chart. And what we try to do in this chart reflects the mill levies. So 2025 tax levies that of all of these taxing jurisdictions or entities, not all of them, but just city and then those that are part of Consolidated Fire District Number 2, and how it stacks up and that mill levy change. And so I will certainly make these available for anybody in the audience who wants to look at how we kind of compare. But I'll just use the example, Prairie Village. So their city mill levy is about 18.076 for the 2026 budget. What we try to do in this chart when you see it is some cities, for example, Overland Park, Shawnee, Olathe, they have fire departments within their city organizational structure. So the cost so we show total city mills, and then for those cities who are covered by Consolidated Fire District Number 2, who has their own mill levy authority, in order to get you to an apples to apples comparison, we combine those. So the combined rate for Prairie Village for next year is 29.056. For Mission is 32.987. But I'll leave these on the back table for anybody who's interested there to just kind of see the progression. I will tell you that, so while there are some changes in mill levy, what you'll see a lot here is people hold their mill levy constant to what it was the previous year. That also tends to generate an increase in revenues because of the increase in the assessed valuation. So even no change in a mill levy from the previous year can result in additional revenues for a taxing entity.
Yeah, and I would add one note on that comparison, because as we just talked about, Mission is not setting that assessed valuation. But if you look at the assessed valuation across communities, that also ties into that mill rate. So for example, Prairie Village, if you compare both their commercial, but also their residential home values compared to Mission, they, the data that was in our packet is from 2024, but they were sitting on roughly $675 million in assessed valuation, while Mission was at $222 million. So they have nearly 3 times the assessed valuation. And then they're applying a mill rate that's only, slightly lower to Mission to fund their operations with 3 times the property value base, essentially. Let me see if we have any new hands first. Yeah, and the maroon shirt. Yeah, I think it's maroon.
Jerry Kofeld. I live on 58th Street, Mission, Ward 2. Yeah, I'm been living in Mission for 34 years. I moved here. My dad lived in Roland Park. Streets were all paved in gold. He always joked and said Mission's got the best streets. I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened. I think they weren't cared for, so now they have to be totally replaced. More money. So somewhere, somehow, the can was just kicked down the street. I want to echo what 2 other 3 about spending. Of course, I'm different. I don't spend more than I can afford to spend, and I would like to see the city of Mission do the same. The residents are the houses are not as nice, of course, as 34 years ago. The streets are not as nice as 34 years ago. The buildings are not as nice as 34 years ago. And I just would like to ask the council to look at the spending and the taxes that are being put on us. Thank you.
All right, I think Frank, I saw your hand.
My name is Frank Estrada. I live on Mill Haven. First of all, I want to give a shout out. The police department does a good job. Appreciate you guys. The only, listening to some of the people here talking, I agree with a lot of them. The only concern I think we have, I hope you take into consideration, is pricing the seniors right out of their homes. That's what I'm most concerned about. And I hear a lot of it from several of the neighbors that I live around, and even some of them a few streets over, that's their biggest concern, that their taxes are going to go so high that they won't be able to afford to pay their taxes, and they'll be moved out of their homes. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you. Ron, did you have a clarifying question or?
I'm Ron from Mission again. I actually I had forgotten to ask one question, and then you made me think of something else. When somebody builds next to you, why do your taxes go up when they've improved their house? It seems like it's an unrealized gain for them, and you haven't done anything to your house. So why are your taxes going up? And secondly, I'm wondering why, since you guys don't really set the taxes, why, if this is a hearing about taxes, why aren't the people here that did set the taxes? Why didn't they show up to the meeting?
We set the tax rate. We don't set the assessed valuation. That is done by the
Oh,
county
okay.
and applies across the county. And then every jurisdiction sets their mills. And so in the handout, if you look, because I think there was a point made about, where is your money going? If you look on the page that has the little dollar, you'll see, the school rate. The school district has the highest mill rate.
Right.
Mission. It shows you what % is going to each of those taxing jurisdictions, but it is the county that sets the assessed valuation. So they're the ones that are sending you that notice from the appraiser's office, and the
Right, that's
city.
my point. Why aren't
Yeah,
they?
the city doesn't have anything to do with that piece. Yeah.
So you typically will get a notice, I believe, in March of each year, which will indicate what they plan to do with the appraised or assessed value of your property. And you, as that property owner, have the opportunity at that point to make that appeal to the appraiser's office. And if anybody's ever done that, you can go in with pictures and all sorts of things. I think just anecdotally, the experience can be hit or miss in terms of whether or not you have success with that. But again, your question about why does my value go up just because, a lot of it's driven by the sales price of home and the real estate prices. When you
Right,
look
but
at.
we haven't realized a gain.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, you will realize the gain upon the sale of your home.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You hope.
exactly. And that's when we'll have the money to pay the tax, right?
I'm sorry, Ben?
Yeah.
Did you have a
Mr.
question?
Dunaway, is your quizzical look about the school district taxation? Yeah, earlier you said
It's just broken down
Yeah.
differently in the tax bill than what I was looking for as.
Yeah, I'll explain that briefly. I wanted to call that out earlier, but earlier Mr. Dunaway mentioned that Mission City taxes were higher than the school district, but unfortunately, the school district has 4 different mill levy lines on the tax bill. So you add all those up and they're by far the highest. So that's where the confusion was.
Got it. Right. Do we have any public comments from someone who's not commented? Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Tom Warwick. I'm a resident of Mission, have been for 30 some odd years. I came tonight because when I saw the increase in this mill levy and the percent increase, it was a little shocking. So one, the presentation today has been helpful to explain a little bit about the why. So I appreciate that. I will, for the record, just echo some of the comments that others have made, that I think it's, the percent is a tough pill to swallow. And I think, I don't necessarily agree with everything that's being proposed to spend on. So like others have said, I think there's an opportunity to watch the way we're spending our money as a city. And then the other question that I have, and I know you have no crystal ball, but what does your long-term planning look like, and what would we expect to see in 27 or 28 in terms of mill increases?
I can't speak because I don't get to vote on it, but I can tell you, let me come up. As assuming I'm here in 27 or 28, I think this budget was built for looking several years into the future, recognizing that an increase in a mill levy, particularly the second one in a 2 or 3 year period, is incredibly challenging for any governing body. And so our hope would be that we really start to address those structural imbalances that we've had. And in part, if you look at some of the other budget documents, our general fund summary, for example, from a pure revenues and expense standpoint, we are not operating in a deficit position. It is funding, making sure that we can accommodate the transfers for streets and all of the other things that have been identified as priorities, as well as maintaining that fund balance that creates some of those challenges. And so we absolutely, if you look at the total, and the other thing is when you look at the total dollar amount for a mill levy increase, we don't get to take advantage of that full amount because 25% of any additional revenue stream, whether that's property tax or sales tax, gets peeled right off the top and put into that general fund reserve fund. And so it's trying to balance that. But I think, again, speaking as the person who would be presenting and making recommendations, I think from my perspective, this mill levy increase recommended here would keep us, is not intended to happen year after year after year.
I did want to make one comment because Laura has referenced the fund balance. And I think there were a couple of comments about that. So that, as I'm going to get the acronym wrong, but the GFAO, OA, I always flip the letters, recommends that a city retain a fund balance in case of extreme events, like COVID or another recession. And so, I think you hear criticism from certain groups, and the press about, cities are just hoarding all of this money, but that is not the intent. It's to, protect for those emergency situations. And it's also looked at when you go out to the market for things like bonds. So like we talked about the Johnson Drive project that is bigger than we can cash flow, even with getting, matching federal dollars and that sort of thing, we have to take out bonds. And so when you're getting your rating, so the city is currently, as of our most recent bond offering, rated AA+, which is the second to best rating by the rating agency, that impacts your interest rate and the cost of borrowing. And so keeping that fund not only ensures protection against emergencies, but also has an impact on your borrowing. Yeah, Mary, did I see a hand?
I have been a resident of Mission for 16 years. I am a volunteer here. And I have questioned some things about it being done around the city hall. So I'm going to say what I say. And one of them is on your Johnson Drive native plantings maintenance is $45,000. How can you do that? Are you shipping the water in or what? I don't understand that amount of an expense. Does someone have that answer?
That is a combined maintenance expense for all of the landscaping beds from Lamar to Knoll on Johnson Drive, plus other city facilities.
But you're saying it's outside of Mission.
No, not outside of Mission,
So only in Mission on Johnson Drive.
only in Mission on a city, either Johnson Drive or other city-owned facilities.
Okay, how can you spend $45,000 for maintenance? What is maintenance?
We bid that service, and so I'm happy to provide a copy of the scope. that was
Okay,
in-
because the native plantings that were done previously by Mission are a failure. And part of that is an overexpense or the wrong company has done the process. And then when something has been brought to your attention that is not successful in dying, nothing has changed. So I've been here as a volunteer for 9 years or 10 years or whatever, and I've seen a lot of changes. And I've also learned that there are people in this community that would volunteer time besides me, whether it's weeding or watering or maintaining or littering or even organizations in this mission that would take on those tasks. So why would there possibly be a $45,000 charge? Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Do we have anyone who hasn't spoke who has a question or comment to make tonight? Justin, anyone online? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. In accordance with state statute, the city council must now consider resolutions confirming its intent to exceed the revenue neutral rates for the 2026 budget for the city of Mission and Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2. First, we will consider the resolution for the city of Mission's 2026 budget. I would now entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council approve the resolution levying a property tax exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the city of Mission's 2026 budget. I second.
Motion and a second. Any further council comment or discussion? I did want to highlight one item we didn't, that Laura mentioned in her presentation, but that we didn't further discuss, which is our our resident rebate program, which we did expand to the eligibility requirements as well as the scope of that. So when we're talking about our residents who are on a fixed income or who have concerns about, being able to stay in their homes, we would encourage you to reach out. My take at least is that we hear a lot from residents about, the services that they want and deserve. We heard a lot about our great police department tonight, being able to maintain and keep our police department. In order to retain officers, the personnel costs that we have to take on, that alone explains 1.5 mils of the mill increase, the amount that we have had to increase salaries to retain a police force. And so in my view, I would rather have those who are able to pay for the services that our residents tell us they want and need, pay for those services, and then make sure that we are assisting those in our community who are unable to make those payments in any given year with our rebate programs. And so we're going to be expanding our outreach on those programs as well. But I wanted to highlight that for those who are here tonight. Yeah, Mary?
Yeah, I know mill levy rate increases aren't always favorable, and we have a really difficult position up here on council, kind of balancing what you as residents want and what we can make happen with the limited amount that we have. I think it's a good reminder too that everybody who sits up here also pays these increases. We're residents along with you. We hear you, we feel what you feel and see what you see. But as one of the residents mentioned earlier, a lot of what we're seeing now is deferred maintenance on streets. And if we continue to defer maintenance on those streets or any other areas, it's only going to get worse. So we're kind of in a dire need to look at this and assess. And good plug that we have resources available for folks. And so thank you.
Any other council comments or questions? Yeah, Ben?
These two resolutions you're hearing right now are sort of statutorily required steps. We're going to adopt the actual budget later after discussion on that item, but these two resolutions are sort of formalities required, even if we were going to hold, in this case, the mill levy constant this year. That's what these two resolutions are. So there'll be another action item on the actual budget later.
All right, any further council comments at this time? Yeah, Leah?
Something that Laura always reminds us, I mean, one of the reasons that it's necessary to exceed the revenue neutral rate at this time is because we're basically going to be paying for next year's expenses with last year's rate of income. And I know many of us have felt the pinch of inflation. We feel it here too. So there's no way that we could take the exact same amount of money that we had last year and pay for all of the things that we do with that same amount of money in 2026, knowing that inflation is making it more expensive. We're not doing anything fancy or new in 2026. We're basically doing what we're doing, except for the Johnson Drive, which again, the majority of that came from federal grant, from county grant. And if we don't do it now, we lose that money. So we will go ahead with that program and with that project for a couple of reasons. Again, we don't want to lose the grant money that we have applied for and been granted. And secondly, there's a lot of work that needs to be done with stormwater underneath Johnson Drive to keep us all from flooding. Continuance of the stormwater projects that we've been doing for a good decade to make sure that our businesses are not in a floodplain. So that's basically what this exceeding revenue neutral step is about. It's acknowledging that there's no way that we can do what we're doing with the amount of money that we received last year, knowing that, again, there's inflation, and we have made, raises in some of our employees in the police department so that we could keep up with everybody else.
All right, Ben?
Yeah, that just brings, since we're sort of peeling the whole potato now, I want to mention, the budget deficit that we were facing before we started really talking about this year's budget was approaching $1 million. And I'm going to talk about part of why that was the case in a moment. But just to be clear, when it comes to, are we looking at spending and how efficiently we spend and what can we do besides raising the mill rate? I think close to half of that, some 40% of the deficit that we were facing at the beginning of this budget process has been effectively covered in the proposed 2026 budget by non-property tax, we'll say sources or actions. So cuts, reductions in department budgets, positions we won't be filling, supplemental equipment requests we won't be, considering this for 2026. So I think just shy of half of that budget deficit has actually been taken care of by tightening the belt, so to speak, and I want to make that clear up front. The second point I wanted to make is that the roughly $1 million deficit that we were facing for budget year 2026 is about equal to the amount of sales and use tax refunds that we've had to give out sort of unexpectedly over the last, couple of years, Laura? Mm-hmm. And I don't really want to challenge the fairness of that, because those entities go through a process and it's determined that they are owed, back taxes that they shouldn't have paid or whatever. That process is incredibly difficult for us to predict. And as Laura mentioned, is often clawing back tax dollars we spent many years ago, which puts us in quite a bind. And we don't really have any advance warning of when that's going to happen. And that's sort of in the last couple of years, kind of a new phenomenon for us. Laura, in your history, I don't think that's been terribly common, but the other thing I want to say about that is these are large entities with resources to go and fight this tax bill. And, theoretically, any one of us living here could do the same, but they've got the time and resources to do it. And when they succeed, those taxes go onto your tax bill. There are a lot of reasons why we're raising the mill rate. And I want to be very clear that I am fully aware how difficult it is to raise the mill rate and how difficult it is on taxpayers, and I don't take it lightly. But I also want to just encourage you all to think about, when these big companies go and claw back taxes in ways that probably you don't have time to go to the Board of Tax Appeals and do for your tax bill. it makes everything more expensive for all of us. And that's a conversation I have with my state reps and I think could benefit everybody if you're interested in doing that.
Yeah, Wanda?
I just want to say that I've been impressed with the transparency that has occurred in this budget process. And a lot of times you guys come thinking that this is the first time that this has been discussed or looked at. But I would encourage you, because all of this is documented on the website. Back in when we first got this, when she first started working on this, and it really will explain a lot of what's going on. And that's all I have to say. It has been a transparent, it is available to you. Please avail yourselves of that information.
All right, seeing no more hands, we had a motion in a second. Ms. Folks, will you please call the roll?
Loudon.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. Sorry. Next we have the resolution for Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2 for the 2026 budget. I would now entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the city council approve the resolution levying a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate for the Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2's 2026 budget.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Folks? Oh, yeah, Laura?
I didn't touch on the Rock Creek Drainage District. So the council is also the governing body or governing board for 2 drainage districts that we have in town. Only one, Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2, which effectively follows the creek channel from Roland Drive to Lamar, is a place where we are exceeding the revenue neutral rate. So that's, I just realized we didn't really talk about the drainage districts in my presentation. The other thing that I might mention is that with the introduction of the revenue neutral rate several years ago by the Kansas legislature, I think it has also created a lot of confusion. And for anybody who picks up the chart this evening, although you may see slight reductions in some communities' mill levies, there is not a single entity on that list who is using the revenue neutral rate as prescribed through that process to fund their budget. And I'm not aware of anybody in Johnson County who has used revenue neutral to fund their budget since it was put in place by the legislature. So again, that dials us back and we don't get to take advantage of any new growth in the community. So I just wanted to make that point because I think it's very confusing, and I think the notices that are distributed by the county can be very confusing as well.
Great, thank you. Do we have any further council comment on this item? Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Ryard.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we will now move into notes and bonds. We do not have any items related to the issuance of notes or bonds this evening, so we will move into our consent agenda. Our consent agenda has 5 items tonight. Our council committees met on September 3rd and fully discussed each of these items. The committees agreed that the items listed on our consent agenda are routine enough to be considered under a single motion. If a council member or member of the public would like an item removed from the consent agenda, they may request that at this time. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, I move the city council adopt the consent agenda as printed, items 4A through 4E.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Vaughn.
Aye.
Ryard.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, next we will move into public comment. This is for if any members of the public would like to make a comment on an item that is not included on our agenda, this would be the time. Do we have anything online? And Kim, just confirming not on our agenda? An item not on our agenda? Okay, come on up.
This is
And
Kim
please state your-
Donaway,
thank you.
Mission, Kansas, Ward 3. This is about a house at 5610 Riggs Street. And I've called this in. I have made complaints. I've told a couple council people. about this particular property that is operating a car rental business, running 8 to 10 cars, now has 2 neighbors involved where they're parking those Beamers on those driveways, plus the 6 to 8, 6 in his driveway and 2 on the street. Now, Leah, you complained about Airbnb, yes? Revolving doors? How do you like having revolving cars daily, impeding the snow? And we're not allowed to have that type of a business in an R1 neighborhood. And I've complained about this for months. I've taken photos, and he was so smug. He goes, I haven't had to do anything. I don't tell anybody what I'm doing. Really? Do you know in the state of Kansas, because I called Kansas about it, he is illegal in so many ways and not following laws? I want to know how come when I've called this in as a complaint, operating illegally, he has not been shut down, and this has been going on for months. Thank you.
I believe I saw one other hand back here. Yep, back row, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Josh. I live in a resident of Mission Hills Apartments. My I have a comment. My complaint is the sidewalks on in front of most of my neighbors' buildings. They need to be repaired or always to be fixed because I don't want my neighbors. Some of my neighbors are wiser and they can't really walk, or they could be rehabbing from an injury like like a knee injury or something. I don't want them to fall when they're walking on the sidewalks. So, thank you.
Right,
Thank you.
thank you. I don't see any more. Yeah, Joe?
Joe Donaway, resident of Mission, Kansas. This is about Waterworks Park, the one that was just redone. The taller structure that children can climb up and then go down the big steep slide all the way down into the nice little splash pad area. That's not actually water, but rubber. It has some open areas at the top that I keep watching parents rush to when they see their child almost fall out of it, whether that child is around the age of 2 or 5 or 8. There's some of the local children that I've seen there. I've almost seen a couple of them roll off. And as much fun as it would be to watch a child roll off a tall structure and break an arm, I think that it would really, cost me time to go over there and help them, call emergency services, have to think about it that day about, what could I have done to stop the child from falling out of the tall structure? Because even though it wouldn't be my child or wouldn't be my responsibility, I would still think about it. It would still stick in the back of my head. What can I do? What could I have done to make this better? I've talked to Penn about it once or twice a while ago, but I figured I might as well bring it up here in front of all of you and while we're being recorded, just in case any of you have ever gone there and climbed up. I mean, I feel safe climbing it, but I mean, I'm in my 30s. So yeah, that structure, even an extra couple of ropes would make it safer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, seeing no other hands, do we have any comments online, Justin? All right, we do not have any items coming forward from our planning commission this evening, so we'll move to our committee reports. First up, we have finance and administration. Councilmember Schmidt, will you please provide a report from finance and administration committee?
I will. Thank you, Mayor. The Finance and Administration Committee met on September 3rd and considered 7 items. The meeting minutes, Millhaven Homeowners Association picnic at Mohawk Park, and adoption of the 2025 Uniform Public Offense Code and Standard Traffic Ordinances were approved under the consent agenda. The resolution adopting a step plan for the Mission Police Department, resolution adopting the 2025 revised and 2026 recommended budget for the City of Mission, and resolutions adopting the 2026 budgets for Rock Creek Drainage District 1 and 2 will be considered under the regular agenda tonight. Item 7A, the resolution adopting a step plan for Mission Police Department. In a February 2025 City Council work session, staff presented information on current challenges and concerns surrounding compensation for the city's sworn law enforcement personnel. The recommendation following the public presentation was for the Chief of Police to work with the City Administrator to develop recommendations to implement a step pay plan for the Mission Police Department. A step plan is essentially a roadmap for wage increases in a defined period of time and provides stability to both the employee as well as the city. One advantage of a step plan is it is very transparent and is intended to provide motivation for staff to strive for promotional opportunities because they can see what their earnings would be if they were promoted. Another benefit to the city is that while the initial expense for implementation can be significant, over time personnel budgeting becomes more stable and predictable. In May 2025, Council authorized significant pay adjustments for sworn non-exempt staff, which were very well received and appreciated by department staff. At that time, Council was made aware that a step plan pay structure would be presented for consideration at a future Council meeting. In anticipation of that step plan implementation, most staff receive pay increases equivalent to where they would be in the step plan implementation phase. The exceptions were those who would have received more than a 20% increase in the 3 sworn positions, chief, deputy chief, and captain, which are salaried/exempt employees and will not be included in the step plan structure. These positions will continue to be included within the city's overall salary structure and position ranges. Staff has prepared a resolution for council considering which would formally adopt a step plan structure for the Mission Police Department effective October 1st, 2025. If approved, the remaining adjustments, along with procedures surrounding the maintenance and administration of the plan for sworn police department staff from police officer to lieutenant, will be finalized and shared with staff. Mayor, I move the City Council adopt the resolution implementing a step plan pay structure for Mission Police Department personnel for the positions of police officer through lieutenant effective October 1st, 2025.
Second. Right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, do we have any, sorry, yeah, Kim, come on up.
Hi, Kim Donaway, Mission resident, Ward 3. In regards to this being a police step for their pay increases and knowing what to count on, same thing with admin and in your employees with, that we're paying their salaries. I pretty much, for the 42 years in the metro, am in every industry you can imagine except aerospace. It is a fact that every industry is struggling to retain employees and to get qualified employees. They can't spend the money. They don't have it in the budget. So when you're putting up these step programs and the budgets and how much they're making, be very aware that there's a certain point where you hit that wall. Because I know what's going on in the community. I'm not locked in a little box because I hit every industry and they all talk. Them owners and managers are struggling because they cannot keep employees either. So remember that when we want to give more benefits, that I am funding out of my tax pocket and the rest of the residents sitting in here and all of you. There comes a point where we just cannot go any higher. It just hits that point, or you make smaller increases. What, they wanted to keep inflation rate at 2% and everybody's wanting to go 8 to 15%? Come on. It's not rocket science, it's math. Thank you.
All right, did I see council hand over here? Nope. Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, just just wanted to point out this is largely already aligning in a lot of ways with raises we've sort of already given and signaled that we want to give to the police department, and is largely a vital effort in recruiting and retention, as I think among all of the sort of areas that have been difficult to recruit and retain for, it's probably Parks and Rec part-time staff and police, and by far we spend more on police personnel than anything. So yeah, for my 2 cents, it's a matter of I want the police department staffed with the officers that are going to come here and do a good job and care about what they do, and that's what they do. And I think in order to keep those people here, who have done a fantastic job for us thus far. You know, the economy is very clear. They can, you know, prior to these increases, they could make a good amount of money, quite a few other places, most other places really. And I don't think that's gonna, you know, how we let that stand, I don't think that's gonna result in a very good situation for Mission when it comes to public safety.
Agree, Laura?
You know me, as I sit here, I think about all the things I didn't say during my presentation, but I do think in response to Ms. Donaway's comments, I mean, I think I don't want to diminish the fact that our residents and our businesses absolutely fund a significant portion of the city's general fund operations. But if you look at the chart in the budget and brief about revenues, property tax revenues anticipated or recommended for 2026 are 33% of the budget. And 16, almost 17% of that will go out to fund streets, not operations. So really the largest component of our budget is sales tax. And when we think about sales tax, we think about something that's called a pull factor. And that is, do you have a community that is drawing people outside of your community into your community to spend dollars and help fund your projects and priorities? Or are you losing residents to other communities? So a pull factor, anything over a pull factor of 1 means you're attracting residents into your community to pay sales tax. Mission's pull factor in 2024 was 1.56, which means 56% of those sales tax revenues are contributed by people who do not live in this community. And that's been an important consideration of not only this governing body, but governing bodies in the past, and why we have relied on sales taxes for things like streets, the dedicated street sales tax, or parks and recreation, because we know that people coming into our community are impacting that pieces of the infrastructure. We know with a Target and a Hy-Vee that is creates work for a significant call load for our police department as well. And I should have made that distinction earlier in the presentation, but it's always this kind of balancing act in terms of where do we put that responsibility and burden for paying for the services that we want to provide.
Yeah, Kim, come on up.
Kim Donaway, Mission resident. This was not about the police department not getting pay raises at all. I don't have an objection to that. This is about the city in general, with all the staff, all the departments, and with the STEP program, we are not the only ones struggling with employees and bringing staff in. I want the council and the city leaders to be aware of how much they're raising the prices and the salaries at a given time. And we have to be mindful of that. It's not about them not getting the raises, because I love my police department. I do. So that's my clarification.
Right, I think I saw maybe a hand over here. Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, I think everybody on the council anyway knows that I make it a point to drive around the town, talking to residents. I do it at any city events that I can get to as well. And the number 2, I think, concerns that I hear about the most are streets and safety. And for me, this is directly designed to address that second concern by making sure that we've got officers that will stay here and who want to be here. And so I'm excited about it. Really, 1, I think they do a great job and should be recognized for that. And 2, for me, it addresses a primary concern that I hear from residents.
Thank you, Brian. And that was when we were having the mill levy conversation and I was highlighting, the personnel costs and the police costs. That wasn't, to disparage the department. That was to say to retain the best officers, which I think, we have. I'd put our department up against anywhere in the metro. Well, if you want to keep the best people, you're going to have to pay to keep the best people, because there are a lot of other places that'll come poaching, trying to take our officers. We see it because they know the strength of our department. Yeah, Leah?
We're unique because we are in a community that's in 2 states, 5 different counties, and multiple suburbs. So there are lots of choices when it comes to being an officer, and the sheriff's department and so many different options for them to choose from when they're deciding where they would like to work. The police force is also unique in the fact that if you take someone who comes in off the street with no prior training, chief, it takes like a year or more to get them up and running to the point where they are ready to get in the car and patrol on their own. This STEP program isn't for the rest of, the city workers. This is specifically for the police department. We're doing everything we can to retain because it is significantly cheaper to give our men and women in blue a competitive wage than to have to start from scratch and train new officers.
Mary, did I see right?
Yeah, and I think we also talk about like financially cheaper too, but like when we have open positions on the police force, that forces our officers to work far more than they need to, and it impacts their mental health like in exponential ways. So I just want to be sure that this council's behind you guys, and we want to be sure that we support you in a way that we can. And I am really glad that we're bringing this forward. So,
Any other further discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Fryer,
aye.
Lucy,
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Loudon,
Aye.
Vaughn,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item 7B, the resolution adopting the 2025 revised and 2026 recommended budget for the City of Mission. As a part of the annual budget process, the City Council adopts a budget resolution which outlines and describes the financial policies, tax and fee structures, and other related issues identified in a particular fiscal year. The attached resolution has been prepared based on the input received from staff, council, and the public through the budget development process. The 2025 revised and 2026 recommended budgets were developed through a series of public meetings and work sessions throughout the summer and are now ready for final adoption. This timing allows for the final budget and tax levy information to be communicated to this county clerk by October 1st, 2025, in order to certify rates and charges for the 2025 tax bills. Mayor, I move the city approve the resolution outlining the policy decisions, mill levies, and fees included in the City of Mission's 2026 budget and adopting the 2025 revised and 2026 recommended budget for the City of Mission, Kansas.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any further council comments or questions on the budget? Yeah, Ben?
Yeah, just, again, to clarify, this is going to be the action item that, if it passes, will set the budget, the mill levy, all the things we've been discussing for most of the time here tonight. So just wanted to make that clear to everybody. My final thoughts on the budget and the increase in the mill levy. Again, I don't want to cover ground I've already covered, so I'll not talk about the sales and use tax refunds again, but, a typical home in the proposed 2026 budget in the City of Mission, with all of your taxing jurisdictions considered and added up, is looking at a mill rate of about 117 mills. Mission is slated to be about 22 of those. The increase that we've contemplated here tonight is 3 of those. So, just want to put that in perspective. Like many have said, our expenses go up essentially, not perfectly, but in line with rising values and rising costs, and that's how inflation more or less works. The additional mill levy that we've contemplated, the 3.5 mills that we're adding to the budget in this action item, really are catching up with things beyond valuation increases. Things that I think Laura did a pretty good job of honestly saying we don't anticipate those things becoming worse in the future. And I agree with that assessment. Somebody said we don't have a crystal ball. That's right. I don't know that we're not going to have another $1 million in sales and use tax refunds next year, but I don't think that's likely. So for my money, this is a mill rate increase that we're contemplating that's designed to cover the deficit now, and our best intention is to not have to do this again next year or the year after that. Time will tell. That's my goal.
Yeah, and I would echo what Mary said before, that, we are all, by nature of our positions, residents of Mission, and we face the increased property valuations, we face the, the increased taxes that we're discussing here tonight. And I don't think, any of us take that slightly. It's been a very many multi-month process to get through this budget. And there is a lot of pressure on the city, including rising personnel costs, our degraded infrastructure. And I think, you saw it a couple years ago when we faced a separate mill levy increase. I don't think that this is a council that wants to push it down the road. We've heard from residents that they want streets improved. They care about retaining the best police department. They care about improvements to our parks, and those things cost money. And, anyone reviewing a line item budget might find an item that, they want more information on, or they think they could bid it better. But I think overall we have, very strong professional staff. We go through competitive bidding processes on our projects. And so I think, we are doing the best with the dollars that we have, and unfortunately have faced increased costs to do pretty much anything involved in city operations. And if you go back to Laura's presentation, and you see that for the average Mission homeowner, your Mission taxes would be $74 a month. Think how much other services you pay for cost. I know we subscribe and unsubscribe from cable depending on the sports season, and we just went to renew our cable, and it's $85 a month now to get YouTube TV, or look at your internet bill. And that's not to say it doesn't hurt when you're facing increased costs, and all of us face those budget pressures. But again, I would like to continue to deliver on the services that our residents say they want and need, and really make sure that we're highlighting our rebate program for the residents that are facing financial pressure. And that was why a couple of years ago we did expand both the eligibility for that program and what that program covers. And so I think that's the better approach. Not to say that we're taking it lightly, because I know none of us do, but I think really looking at for the residents who need a little extra help while delivering on the services that everyone says they need. Yeah, Ben?
It's a good point about delivering the services. There's a gentleman who stood up earlier that said 34 years ago the streets were looking pristine. What happened? What happened was low mill rates for most of those 34 years, and not working on the streets. And they may have looked good then, but as we have come to find out, almost all of them, no matter how good they looked on the surface, were terrible below the surface. We've got a lot more work to do on streets. So we're, our public works staff and our city hall staff do a really amazing thing in terms of figuring out how to pave just enough of the roads that we get a little bit further ahead every year without blowing the tax bill sky high, because genuinely the amount of maintenance needed on our streets is astronomical. And we're just inheriting that from those 34 years of very low mill rates. Just for my part, I want to say, what's my plan to make sure we're not going to be facing, runaway taxes? I genuinely believe that the economic development and growth of Mission is the most important way to do that. Laura mentioned that when we look at development projects, even those that request incentives, we make an extremely careful analysis of those projects to make sure that they're going to benefit the city generally from year one, but certainly throughout the life of the incentive program. And thereafter, they'll be taxed at the regular rate, and we collect all of the due revenue from those projects. But what I think is more important about those projects is getting more people here, getting more businesses here, getting those for lease signs to come off, making sure that businesses are bringing in enough revenue that they can paint the crumbling facades on some of the buildings, that kind of thing. My platform, if you will, as a council person has been, there's a lot to be done here. And I don't want to raise your mill rate. I want to bring more people in to share the bill. So that's my final word on the budget.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Ryder?
Aye.
Schmidt?
Aye.
Vaughn?
Aye.
Josie?
Aye.
Loudon? Aye. Carpenter Davis?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Items 7C through 7D, the resolution adopting the 2026 Rock Creek Drainage District Number 1 budget and resolution adopting the 2026 Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2 budget. In addition to the city's budget, the City Council serves as the governing body for Mission's Rock Creek Drainage Districts Numbers 1 and 2. The City of Mission's budget was considered and adopted with the previous resolution. 2 additional resolutions have been prepared for council consideration to adopt the 2026 recommended budgets for the 2 drainage districts. These motions will both be made individually. Mayor, I move the City Council adopt the resolution approving the 2026 recommended budget for Rock Creek Drainage District Number 1. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, any council comments or questions? Seeing none, Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Vaughn. Schmidt.
Aye.
Loudon. Aye. Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Ryder.
Aye.
Josie.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mayor, I move the City Council adopt the resolution approving the 2026 recommended budget for Rock Creek Drainage District Number 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment on this item? Any council comment or questions? Seeing none, Ms. Folks, please call the roll.
Josie.
Aye.
Loudon.
Aye.
Ryder.
Aye.
Carpenter Davis.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Vaughn. Motion carries.
And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Carpenter Davis, will you please provide a report from the Community Development Committee?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. The Community Development Committee also met on September 3rd and considered 3 items. The meeting minutes, MFAC Orange Slide Restoration Contract and contract award for the 2025 pavement marking project were approved under the consent agenda earlier tonight. No items will be considered under the regular agenda this evening. That concludes my report.
All right, we do not have any unfinished business tonight. Or new business. Therefore, we will move into comments from the City Council. This is an opportunity for any comments from our council members. Does anyone on the council have something they'd like to share tonight? Yeah, Ben?
Just a final, at least for now, thank you to staff for the work done on the budget. It's a long process. There's a lot to do. There's a lot more to do when you have to tighten the belt. So thank you to staff for that. Thank you to everybody that came out tonight. I know most of the folks have filtered out that came to make comment. There are nights where we have meetings with issues that I think are genuinely impactful to a lot of people, and we don't hear comment. And I understand that people are busy, but it makes a big difference whether you like what we're doing or not when you show up and say that. So I appreciate everybody participating.
Yeah, I would echo that. We appreciate everyone who came out tonight, but then we would love to see you earlier in the process as well, and just at routine minutes, so you can see where your tax dollars are going. And we're always open for any questions if you want to reach out to us. In the meantime, if you don't have the time to make it to every meeting, I understand, but we're always available by phone or email as well. Any other council comments? Seeing none, next we have our council committee liaison reports. These reports allow the entire governing body to stay up to date with the various activities of our boards, commissions, and committees. First, Councilmember Loudon for sustainability.
Yes, we met on September 8th, and I want to remind everyone about the Go Green environmental fair that is coming up on October 18th from 9 until noon. There will be lots of exciting things going on. There's a Plug in America, which this is kind of a new addition to this year's Go Green Environmental Fair. We'll be bringing 8 different EV cars for people to test drive. So if you're interested in seeing what's going on there, you might want to check that out. The Sustainability Committee was able to go be present at the Mission Market 3 times this year, which they were very excited about, being able to share what they do and how it impacts the community. So far, they have been able to recycle 800 pounds worth of batteries, or 800 pounds have been sorted, which is very exciting. We've got the Complete Streets Workshop coming up on September 5th. Oh, no, sorry, that's already been. We'll be doing the scorecard for the lanes coming up soon, we hope. Yeah, and hopefully being able to give them a plaque for how they've done on their sustainability checklist.
And they did provide us a week or two ago with their actual certification for their LEED Silver status.
Fantastic. And that concludes my report.
All right, next we have Councilmember Schmidt for Parks, Recreation and Tree Commission.
So I was not able to attend because I was at a funeral, but Councilmember Kring sent me her handwritten notes, which I'm going to attempt to read now. There is the walk and roll for Ruckert Trail on October 4th from 10 to noon. Please do register online in advance. That is everyone's opportunity to go along the trail and make recommendations for improvements and changes. For those of you who participated in the tree drive, the distribution is on September 20th. That's this Saturday at 9 o'clock at the community, 9 a.m. To noon at the community center. And then Parks and Rec has the concert in the park this Friday at 6 p.m. I'm seeing a discrepancy between the handwritten notes and my calendar here, but let's say 6 p.m. at Mohawk Park. Yeah. That's what I've got. Thank you.
All right, next we'll hear from Councilmembers Reichert and Chosi for Mission Magazine Editorial Board.
Yes, hello. As of 2 Thursdays ago, the issue was at the printer, but I have it today, so I'm assuming it's done being printed. So this issue is all about different musicians all over Mission. Unfortunately, you'll have to also read about some people on council and all of our expertise. Not unfortunately. There's some people on council who are actually very talented, so not me. But anyways, and then the printer kind of threw a curveball that instead of quantities of 8 or quantities of 4, they wanted 8 quantities of 8 pages. So I think staff did a really good job of kind of like pivoting and filling up some of these spots, including the Mission Market Musicians page. The next issue will be Taste of Mission coming out sometime. Okay, for some reason I have September and I was like, that's this issue. So, yep, great. Thank you. Yep.
Just want to make a comment that just because she isn't musical doesn't mean she doesn't have.
It's very good.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, we're missing our actually classically trained opera singer here
Yeah.
tonight. So feel free to check that out in the magazine.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All right. Does that conclude your
Yes,
report?
sorry, yes.
I know, distracted by the magazine.
I
It's
know.
fair.
We're all looking.
Finally, Councilmember Carpenter Davis with Family Adoption Committee.
Yeah, the Family Adoption Committee met on August 28th. We are adopting 71 families from the Mission area in the schools. We work with the social workers to identify families. And so that means at Thanksgiving time, we will be distributing food to these families for the holiday. And then in December, we will be distributing the presents and such like that. So look for the trees to be put up. And so go to the community center and grab a gift card and find out what some families want. And like very similar to what they do with the Christmas project, Johnson County Christmas Project, we offer families, what they want and we take their lists. Our next Family Adoption Committee is September 25th.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Laura, do you have any items you would like to share with the council tonight?
Then Justin will go financials, and then I have just a couple of quick things.
Yes, thank you. So as you may have seen in the Mission Monthly that went out this week, we've welcomed 3 new businesses to Mission in the last month or so. Legacy Forge at 6950 Splitt Road, Arnone Tax and Accounting at 5201 Johnson Drive, and Enlighten KC, which is a combination yoga studio and maybe like some wellness at 5300 Marway Street. Thank you.
I think there's been plenty of budget discussion this evening already. So I will just note that the 2 reports in your packet and moving forward, the estimated columns and all of those charts include the new 25 budgets that were just adopted. So those new numbers are in there.
Okay, couple of things. I think just a reminder that the Johnson County Post will be hosting a candidate forum next Tuesday, September 23rd at 7 p.m. at the Merriam Community Center. I believe that is for contested races only, so Ward 2 and Ward 3. Also, we touched briefly earlier in the meeting about next week's work session. So then Wednesday, September 24th at 6 p.m., we will be doing our Complete Streets work session. We have some more extensive pre-reading material than you have sometimes with a work session packet. So that will be going out in the morning, be posted to the website, and we'll provide you with that link. So you have at least a couple of extra days to take a look at that. And again, we're not looking, this is really just kind of the introduction. We're looking for some council feedback and talking about next steps in that process. And we'll look forward through that process to introducing you to our new city planner, Taylor Cunningham. We have, as of last week, filed the condemnation petition for the Johnson Drive reconstruction project. As we've discussed, I think the word condemnation or eminent domain stirs up a lot of anxiety sometimes in the community. We are using condemnation to acquire right-of-way and temporary construction easements from the businesses along that corridor on both sides of the street. Because we have federal funds associated with this project, we are required to compensate and offer compensation for all of those. So those parcels have been appraised. We've, over the last several months, been making offers, but we have to be able to certify all of that right-of-way and those temporary construction easements to KDOT before we can take the project out to bid. So I will tell you that since we filed the condemnation petition, we have actually now heard from all but 3 of the property owners that we've had some difficulty. As we've talked about before, there are a lot of sort of franchise businesses, and so getting through the corporate structures is a little bit challenging. But we're very hopeful. I think we have some good progress in the next couple of weeks to come back and report, and hopefully we'll hear from the other 3. I was also advised this afternoon that we have the hearing set in district court for October 20th. And so Director Boyce and I, or one or both of us, will participate in that. And then that, we had publishing notice of that public hearing next week. So that is out there. And then the independent appraisers can begin their process. My hope would be that we have all of the easements acquired and we don't actually have to follow through with that process. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on is I know there was a lot of conversation and media coverage around a conversation last week in Overland Park around their state Safe Streets for All grant. And some of you may have seen that. If you didn't, there were some questions about terms and conditions that were being imposed on that grant agreement. And so that generated some questions, both from the community and from the mayor and others on the council about how does that relate to our Safe Streets for All grant application. So we executed our grant agreement in November or December of 2024. And so the new terms and conditions only apply to grant. They became effective March 17th of 2025. So any executed grant agreements that were in place are not subject to the new terms and conditions. And so that includes some language around cooperation with federal immigration, ICE. It relates to climate, anything related to climate resilience, DEI initiatives. So again, those things are not included in our agreement and will not be included in our agreement. And also, just kind of as a general note, as it relates to our police department's involvement, should we have federal immigration activity in our community, is we don't have the authority to enforce federal regulations. And so we would not be involved with that. So I just wanted to put that on the record because I know we've had several questions and it's been a topic of conversation. And I think that is all I have
Can I add one quick
Y-
reminder?
yes.
Backing off of our wonderful police department. Cone with the Cop is tomorrow night, 6 to 8 at Baskin Robbins. So join them, get a free cone, maybe some fun games. And thank you very much.
All right, next, we do not have a need for an executive session this evening, so I would just note that before we adjourn tonight, I want to share with the public that the video from this meeting will be available through a link on our website at missionks.org. There being no further business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, yeah, Wanda, yeah, you're fine.
Say that, my neighbor that had a fit about the streets in front of his, I'm in front of his driveway, he stopped me, he has never talked to me, but he did talk to me and he was ecstatic that the street has been fixed. Thank you so much.
All right, so we had I believe I heard a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Seconded.
All right, all those in favor say aye. We are adjourned.